So, it was a cold, dark night in New York City. Rich Hickey pondered in a study, frustrated with complexity, mutated state, never-ending inherited boilerplate. He suspected there could be a better way, without sacrificing power, performance, or changing of state. He admired functional programming philosophies, but was interested to see if they could be applied more practically. Because Lisps weren't uncommon academically. They were born in the dungeon of MIT, scheming on recursion and Lisp processing. But humans are chaotic, and our data, it reflects that. Sequential data, linked lists, good to teach theoretically, but for production, not a reality. Associative structures, hash maps like an array, are more authentic. Rich thought maybe this was the way. Speaking of humans living chaotically, this time back in 2007 in Washington, D.C., I was a young creative rebel, frustrated with authority. The only class for me was the one I skipped, or the CSS for my MySpace pics. I didn't believe that STEM was for me. I thought math was difficult and the answers eluded me. So when it came time to choose a path academically, I chose the School of Hard Knocks into Grateful Dead University. Years of meetups and talks and blogs and YouTubes and slides, Clojure had proved itself, scaled up in size. The community swelled, excited with hope. Simple made easy was finally in scope. Meanwhile, back in Central PA, a dread-headed vagabond was not doing okay. It turns out my plan of selling grilled cheese on lot wasn't actually as compelling or lucrative or legal as I thought. Jobs weren't careers and the hours sure sucked. My brain was so bored, but then in walked some luck. So you're looking for something lucrative and fun? Have you tried programming? My experience level is none. This fire new book just dropped. It's for people kind of like you. It's called Clojure for the Brave and True. I started to listen. Wait, what's it to do? What do you mean just join the Slack, read some books, eval, apply, and get cool? Fast forward 2019. November days in PA were getting colder and shorter. I found fun hacking away, putting data in order. I was poking around in the Clojurian Slack when it was Alex Miller who answered me back. No more opportunity grant stipends for the conj, I'm afraid, but I'm happy to gift you a ticket, no need to pay. I hope you enjoy our humble programming group. By the way, please remember to apply for a grant for my conference, Strange Loop. I had no idea the effects this would have. Maybe Alex did. He is Clojure's cool dad. I met folks, I took notes, for loop friends forever. I learned things, I earned wings, talking about compile errors. I got a job, I flew away, finally free from my cage. Okay, now we can all clap at those. Woo! Hi, everyone. My name is Jordan, also known as Lambda. In addition to the zillion projects I have going on, lately I've just been kind of writing music. And so when I sat down to kind of write the hook intro for this, it kind of came out like that. So I just decided to run with it, and I think it went well. So somewhere between the night before Christmas and Dr. Seuss. This, I think. So, by a show of hands, how many of you feel confident that you know the core philosophies of Clojure? Okay, 3, cool. Anybody confident enough to explain to a junior dev? To a child? Of the 2, okay. If you didn't raise your hand, that's fine. This talk's for you. Let's explore how curiosity can turn that hesitation into confidence. So whether you're new to Clojure or you're an experienced Clojurian, this talk is about how curiosity drives growth, both for individuals and entire ecosystems. It's about how asking the right questions and seeking feedback and embracing uncertainty can transform overconfidence into wisdom and complexity into simplicity. So this is something we do in Clojure land. We love to be pedantic and define words. It's just like our thing. So let's start with understanding curiosity. So the Latin root of curiosity is curiosus, meaning careful, diligent, or eager to know. It suggests intentional attention and care, and a focused effort to understand. I actually really love this definition. So I love Brené Brown. She's just awesome. And she expands on this in her book, Atlas of the Heart. And she defines curiosity as recognizing a gap in our knowledge about something that interests us, and then becoming emotionally and cognitively invested in closing that gap through exploration and learning. It starts with interest, and it can go from mild curiosity to passionate investigation, rabbit holes. It's about vulnerability and courage, and the willingness to engage with uncertainty and risk and go somewhere you don't know. So together, these definitions show us that curiosity isn't just passive wonder. It's an active commitment to seeking understanding and growth. So curiosity is what bridges the gap between what we know, what we don't know, and what we don't realize that we don't know. And today, I'm going to explore that journey with you. So first, we're going to talk about Rich Hickey and the evolution of the Clojure ecosystem. And then I'm going to talk about my personal story of learning, failure, growth, all the good stuff. And then I'm going to do a showcase of the mature Clojure ecosystem. And that's going to be the actionable part. And that's really going to drive home how maturity can drive curiosity and vice versa. Let's see here. Oh, I should have done that slide a second ago. So Rich Hickey was working as a software developer, navigating the same issues many of you have faced. Mutable state causing frustrating, hard to reproduce bugs, concurrency becoming essential, but it was still difficult and error prone, and nobody knew how to reason about it. And then endless boilerplate code in languages like Java with like inheritance hierarchies. And OO really promised this reusability, but in reality, you didn't get to reuse anything. You had to redefine everything. And so it was adding complexity instead of reducing it. So developers were immediately drawn to the potential. Like immutability, concurrency, Lisp for the JDM. Yay, some of y'all were probably here. The early adopters were passionate, and for a while it felt like Clojure could solve everything. But as the excitement grew, so did the tension. Developers had very strong opinions about what they wanted Clojure to become. There we go. I was having some mouse issues. So in 2009, Rich responded with a now famous essay. Open source is not about you. In it, he reminded everybody of the purpose of open source. And it's about the software. It's not about individual expectations. It's about a way to share ideas and solutions, but it's not a guarantee that every request will be implemented. And this essay was pretty polarizing. But it did set the tone for how Clojure would evolve. Like not through satisfying every demand or trying to become popular, but staying focused on the core philosophy of simplicity and practicality. And Rich's response shows us another kind of curiosity, a curiosity to ask what makes open source sustainable in the long run. His essay helped clarify that Clojure wasn't chasing clout or trying to gain popularity. It was about solving real problems and being used in a very real way. So this moment really marked a critical turning point. It helped align the community around Clojure's core philosophy and its principles: simplicity, immutability, power, focus. And it reflected something that we see that's bigger, a pattern we see with pretty much almost every piece of new technology: the rise of the hype. So maybe some of y'all are familiar with this. So the cycle starts with this peak of inflated expectations, where the hype runs high, everyone thinks the new technology is going to solve all these problems, and then reality sets in. The trough of disillusionment, where challenges emerge, things get more real, and excitement fades. And a lot of technologies don't move on past this stage. But if you have some staying power, for technology with staying power, like you have curiosity, perseverance, it can lead to refinement, where tools, libraries, communities come together and start supporting and getting closer to the promise that technology made in the beginning. At the end goes the plateau of productivity, where the technology becomes a trusted tool in the domain. So Clojure's journey aligns almost perfectly with this curve. So as the initial excitement faded, developers started to question Clojure. Oh, is it too niche? Lisp within the academic? What is with the parentheses? Can it scale? Many developers found functional programming unfamiliar, and the Lisp syntax, like the prefix notation, was just too much, I guess. And Clojure's growth slowed. That's when we entered the trough of disillusionment. Some of these critiques showed up on Hacker News. I think some of those threads were called, like, "Is Clojure dead?" They said things like, "Clojure isn't the most beginner-friendly language," which is kind of true. However, Rich remained steadfast. In 2011, he delivered his influential talk, Simple Made Easy, where he emphasized the distinction between simplicity and ease, and the importance of managing complexity through immutable data structures and pure functions, keeping it functional. So this talk was huge in reshaping perceptions and encouraging developers to see Clojure not as a complex tool, but as a means to achieve simplicity. And this really laid the groundwork for the slope of enlightenment. During this period, Rich also teamed up with the core team and Stu Holloway to develop Datomic, an immutable time-aware database that's like the ideological extension of Clojure. It's like if Clojure's open source, right? If Clojure had a product baby and it was a database, that's Datomic. It was released in 2012, and it's on the same thing: simplicity, immutability, power, focus, and thinking about data as a first-class citizen. Oh, this is a slide I was supposed to be on. So today, Clojure is a mature, trusted language powering mission-critical systems across industries like finance, healthcare, and e-commerce. So in 2020, Nubank acquired Cognitect, which is the consultancy and the core team behind Clojure and Datomic, and that solidified its place in enterprise development. It's not just an academic experiment. This is solving real-world problems at scale. So the ecosystem has grown to include beginner-friendly tools like Babashka for scripting, and we just talked about Datomic, which is a little bit more advanced. And Clojure's journey through the Gartner Hype Cycle reflects how curiosity and persistence can transform hype into sustained innovation. Woo, what's the point of this talk? Just as curiosity shaped Clojure's journey, it shaped mine too. When I started programming, I wasn't thinking about immutability, simplicity, or best practices. I knew nothing. I was thinking about survival. I was thinking about finding something that could bring stability to my life and growth. And just like Clojure, my path also wasn't a straight line. It was messy, it's been humbling, and it's been full of lessons that I didn't even realize that I needed at the time. So raise your hands. How many of you have ever thought, I got this, be cake, only to discover later that maybe you didn't got this? Okay, cool. Glad we're in the same, so we gotta humble it down. So when I first started programming, I wasn't even sure I was programming. Like I said, I was just making my MySpace pics look pretty. And I didn't think that STEM was for me. I thought programming was something that like genius people did. and math seemed really out of reach. Part of that probably had to do with the fact that I didn't have the discipline to do the homework. And so my only exposure was passively in class. Looking back, hindsight is 20/20 on that one. But because of all of that, I went into another direction. And for years, I didn't touch code. I didn't own a computer. I just thought I wasn't smart enough to belong in tech. And fast forward to my mid-20s, when I realized that I needed a career that was stable and challenging. And it was actually, I was working as a bartender, and it was one of my customers at the bar would come in with his laptop. And at first I hesitated because, like, wasn't I already too far behind? Haven't all y'all been doing this since forever? Don't you have the programmer gene? And, but people believed in me, and that was really important in my journey. And as I've learned since then, curiosity is one of my top values, just personal development. So I dove right in, so unconsciously incompetent. I specifically remember a joke I told online on Facebook. I was excited to be learning programming, and somebody had been doing something in JavaScript, and I commented something that very clearly showed that I did not know the difference between Java and JavaScript. Like, I was like, oh yeah, I'm down with the Java too, but yeah, no. And so what I did is I learned how to learn better. Turns out it's active learning. And as it turns out, MIT puts out all the good stuff basically for free. So I started with something called Scheme School, and SICP, the purple book right there, Structure and Interpretation of Computer Programs, is a classic title from MIT. There are these lectures that go along with it that are really good, especially to watch now. And what's cool is that was a time in programming where women did programming. About half the class was women, so it was kind of cool to see that. It was, that also goes in ups and downs. But as I said, most importantly, I had lots of people that believed that I could be a programmer too. I was handed a book written by somebody that believed that Clojure is for everyone. I coded along with content produced by people that I'm now really proud to call friends. And I started to produce more like edutainment content as I got more farther along in my career, because teaching is a good way to learn. And that's kind of when I realized how much I didn't know. This phase was humbling and exciting and aided by my REPL. I was exploring and building and taking too long to do everything. And every day was a new flow. Every new concept was like climbing a mountain, but I just kept going, just curious little cat over here. And it was really impactful to find a community where I felt like I belonged. And I felt the Clojure community really just embraced me. And I felt like I belonged. It's really cool. And this was not on accident. This is ripped from a paper called The History of Clojure. And just as much as Rich had intentionally designed Clojure for the professional programmer, he had also intentionally established and required a tone of supportiveness, positivity, and respect that had been seized upon, maintained, and enforced by the community itself as one of the core values and points of pride. The Clojure community is friendly, and we're helpful, and we tolerate nothing less. We're aggressive about it. So eventually, I got my first job as a programmer. Winter 2019, I interviewed all day on a Thursday, accepted an offer on Friday, and then packed all my things into a minivan, drove 5 hours, and on Tuesday, I signed a lease in Charlottesville, Virginia. And I was like, oh my God, I made it. I'm a real person now. I'm a real programmer. And that confidence went on for a little bit. I started experimenting using like advanced techniques. Before I fully understood the basics, I realized that I still don't really understand the basics. But I was a bug hunter in the Clojure script code base. And despite painting a picture of an overly eager, newly minted programmer, my performance reviews were good. And I was really complimented on my ability to leverage communication as a means to solve the real problem. although I was told that I needed to be more pragmatic. I was not sure what that meant because I did not yet have the experience that causes you to be more pragmatic. So I ended up getting fired from my first job as a result of that hubris. Ask me my feelings about Clojure transducers sometimes. And then I got another Clojure script job. It was a startup that failed. Cool. And then I was yearning for learning, and I pursued opportunities to level up. I started working at Vouch with the maintainer of the Clojure script compiler because I was doing Clojure script. And that's with David. Yeah, I don't know if he's here. He's definitely here. And over the course of 3 years, I kind of rode on this dichotomy. On one hand, my content, my edutainment content was getting super popular, and I seemed to be on this rainbow rocket to Clojure fame. And then thinking I had it all figured out, and then only to have reality check me really hard when I kept getting fired. And these failures were devastating, and they taught me something really important though. Overconfidence can only take you so far. If you're not curious, if you're not actually actively asking questions and seeking feedback and looking for improvement, you're not growing. This was in Charlottesville. I was so excited, overconfident, everything's fine. And then this was I don't want to say rock bottom, but it was pretty. It was pretty. This last tech job apocalypse, it got me. It was my first time of really getting got by the loss of jobs. So after losing my second job, I knew that something had to change, and I couldn't rely on overconfidence anymore. And I needed a new approach. So around this time, Rich did his talk Design in Practice, and this is at the Clojure Conj in 2003 or 2023. And he mentioned this book, The Socratic Method, A Practitioner's Handbook. That book has been a turning point for me, and started just thinking about my own thinking. It breaks down the Socratic dialogues to the different techniques that are used, because those dialogues are meant to show a way of thinking, a way of questioning yourself. And so I got really into asking better questions and finding inconsistencies and being a hypocrite and leaning into my cognitive dissonance and exploring it and just shamelessly seeking feedback. I love being wrong. It's so great. And fun fact, a lot of this thinking is actually done in Google Sheets. Building on Rich's talk from last year, Alex actually did a talk this year at the Conj, which was a couple weeks ago, and that was titled Design in Practice in Practice. I recommend both of those talks. It's a really good way to structure your thinking. And I've run every tool possible. I've done Miro, I've done Lucid, I've done all of the things. Google Sheets though. So the cycle of curiosity, experimenting, failing, learning, repeating, also known as screwing around. I don't know if I can curse. Screwing around, finding out, recording it. So 4 months ago, I joined the Datomic Developer Success team at Nubank, and I work on the Clojure ecosystem and developing it as part of Nubank. I still don't have all the answers. I love not knowing answers, remember? But I've learned that curiosity is the key to growth. And by staying curious, I've not only improved as a developer, but I've also connected with a community that values real learning and real thinking. My story, just like Clojure, isn't about being perfect. It's about growing and learning and solving real problems. So that's my journey. It wasn't a straight line, and it wasn't without failure. But every step of the way, curiosity kept me moving forward. Progress isn't linear. Now let's zoom out and put this story in context. My story. Who's heard of the Dunning-Kruger effect? Okay. So psychologists David Dunning and Justin Kruger identified a cognitive bias where people with low competence in a skill overestimate their ability. And there's often a burst of overconfidence. It's been named, I did not name it, the peak of Mount Stupid. And as we gain more experience, reality sets in and confidence drops. This is known as the Valley of Despair. I think that the Socratic word for it is aporia. But if we keep going, curiosity and perseverance can help us climb up the slope of enlightenment until we reach a place of more balanced, humble competence. And looking back, my journey as a programmer mirrors this exactly. At first, I didn't know how much I didn't know. I didn't know so much, I just signed up to be a programmer overnight. I'm like, oh, that looks cool. Okay, sure. And so maybe in that case, it kind of worked in my favor. In the next couple of years of software development, aided by my REPL, I bike shed up Mount Ignorance. And after losing my second job, I arrive at the peak of Mount Stupid. Losing my second job in 3 years last August was, while I was under contract buying my house, was my Valley of Despair, a humbling but necessary step towards growth. Considering my personal values more deeply and embracing curiosity is helping me climb out of this, but it's a daily battle. So here's where it gets interesting. My journey isn't just personal. It mirrors the journey of Clojure itself, as seen through the Gartner Hype Cycle. The peak of inflated expectations maps to the peak of Mount Stupid, where excitement and overconfidence reign. The trough of disillusionment matches the Valley of Despair, where reality sets in and challenges become clear. And the slope of enlightenment is named the same in both frameworks, a period of growth and refinement driven by curiosity. So Clojure story and my Clojure story and my story follow the same arc because they're both about the process of learning and growth. Actually, both of these frameworks have been criticized for being just recording the normal process of life and putting too much stock in the data. So what's the takeaway here? If both the Dunning-Kruger effect and the Gartner Hype Cycle are inevitable, how do we move forward? Anybody have any guess? Is it curiosity, the word I've said 20 times? Maybe. The answer is curiosity. Curiosity keeps us asking questions and seeking feedback and staying open to growth. It's what helped me climb out of the Valley of Despair, and it's what helped Clojure move from hype to maturity. So curiosity bridges that gap between that overconfidence and true wisdom and skill. It's the antidote to both individual and community versions of the same struggle. So far, we've explored two journeys. One, Clojure's evolution through the Gartner Hype Cycle, and my personal growth story through the Dunning-Kruger effect. We've seen how curiosity played a critical role in both, transforming hype and overconfidence into sustained growth and basic competence. But what's this look like in practice? How has curiosity shaped the tools and libraries that make Clojure not just language, but a vibrant, mature ecosystem? In this final section, I want to highlight some of the most more exciting developments that maybe you've missed out on, because our community is kind of insular, right? We don't really hang out on all of the places that normally you would find developers. For example, Stack Overflow. We have our own Clojurian Slack. We used to kind of congregate on Twitter, I guess, but now that's dead, so that's cool. So whether you're new to Clojure or you're an experienced Clojurian, I want to show you these tools in a way that matches up with your experience. So, kind of talked about this a little bit, but this is called the 4 stages of competence model. And it can also just be if you really, really oversimplify it, it's novice, intermediate, and expert. So I actually crowdsourced a lot of these answers. Let's see, Friday at 4. Hey, in the last 4 years, What cool new addition to the Clojure ecosystem excites you the most? I'm prepping for a talk where I'll be providing some ecosystem updates to Clojure curious cats, and I'm trying to crowdsource. So 33 replies. It's pretty good. So we're going to start at novice, and for each level, I'm going to do kind of the passive introduction. So I'm going to think of these as like books, talks, things that you can passively take in. And then the second part, I'm going to share like tools, libraries, frameworks, that bleeding edge stuff we were just talking about. So if you're a complete novice and you don't know where to start with Clojure, I do recommend Clojure for the brave and true. Although, disclaimer, skip the first like couple chapters because they talk about like line again, which is an outdated build tool that we've replaced with tools depths. And it also recommends, it tries to get you started on Emacs. Do not. Just don't. Just. So another book, Programming Clojure, is a pragmatic programmer's book by Alex. And the 4th edition is going to come out soon because there have been, sneak peek, there have been some updates to Java that actually, it used to be like a code golf thing, like the opening section was like, this is it in Java. And then it was like, this is it in Clojure, and like a tiny little, but Java improved. Actually inspired by Clojure, Java improved because Brian Getz hangs out with the Clojure crew. So they're redoing, the 4th edition should be out soon-ish. There are so many significant Rich Hickey talks. You just gotta start, but simple made easy is really notable. Also hammock-driven development, you kind of have to see just so you can get all the hammock jokes. It's like a cultural touch point. And really that's just about stopping and thinking, not coding, thinking. The other thing you can check out is my podcast. It's called Lost in Lambdas. And that is independently produced. So your expectations need to go down here, way down. Yeah, like I used it, actually initially started it as an excuse to teach myself production skills, and people like it. So I do continue to do it. It's just kind of inconsistent. So I'll just give you that. But a lot of the tools that we're talking about today, I've interviewed a lot of those authors. And the whole point of Lost in Lambdas is to meet the person behind the GitHub. Because I figure if we humanize the people that make our tools, we can be more empathetic to them. And we get into some really awesome conversations. Like, I don't know why Buddhism has been a theme of this season, but completely unrelated. Every single person is like, Buddhism has come up. So that's cool. All right, and here we have the tools because we like active learning. If you go to clojure.camp, that is at this point, we're a learning community, I think would be the best way to describe it. And we did it with one of my co-founders a couple weeks ago at the Conj. We actually did a whole talk about Clojure Camp that does the story from beginning to end and what we've learned. One of the rabbit holes that I have jumped down is pedagogy and learning and teaching. And we've really been using Clojure Camp as a learning experience experiment, trying to figure out how to teach new skills at scale, right? And it's not cohort-based. It's just a Discord with some buddies that meet sometimes and talk about some code, do some mob programming. Okay, so a few years ago, we got the Clojure CLI and deps.eden. That has been a game changer. So see, those of you that were here earlier actually saw the terminal that I just screenshot it from. You can just go CLJ and just get a REPL. Look at that. So easy. Hey friends, hello world. We love that. We have finally got good IDE support. Yes, yes, yes. And I'm saying that I do Emacs. Because when I learned Clojure, that was the path. That's what you did. You learned Emacs, so you had pair edit, so you could balance your parentheses, and everything was fine. But it was hard, and we don't have to be hard anymore. Calva for VS Code is amazing. It even has like a Clojure tutorial like built in it. It's just a plugin. You just go boop de boop. And if you want to put it on like expert mode, you can even go in VS Code. There's even plugins for Emacs key bindings, so you can still use your pair edit, which is useful, but then use the tool that you're actually familiar with. There's also Cursive for IntelliJ. I use that. I love JetBrains. So one of our open source contributors, actually the one that urged me to start my podcast in the beginning, is Michiel Borkent, also known as Bork Dude. This man is legendary in our culture. He has made CLJ Condo, which is linting support, and Babashka, which is native fast-starting Clojure interpreter for scripting. Alex goes over this in his talk, but in the Clojure survey, we added a question about, what are you using, and is it Babashka? And it was like 90% of Clojure developers are using Babashka, which is nuts. Okay, now we're gonna go over to intermediate level. So I had mentioned I don't know if I mentioned. So intermediate level, at this stage, you're started experimenting and you've realized, okay, this Clojure stuff is cool, but there's more to learn. And so you can actually build some real useful applications, and you can explore some advanced capabilities. You don't have to think about how to balance every single thing. And hopefully at this point, you've started to actually use the REPL. And if you've started to do that, good on you, because a lot of people never get that far. And so they never kind of reap the benefit of a fast feedback loop, which is really disappointing. So actually, I think this just got put into print. So Clojure Brain Teasers is 25 puzzles to help identify flaws in your existing mental model and then correct it. I've been working on this book for the last 2 years with Alex Miller. And he initially, at first, my imposter syndrome was so high. When I get an email from one of my heroes, hey, you want to co-author a book? Yes, I would. It took a very long time. But one of the things that he valued was my curiosity and my ability to ask questions. And, we realized how beneficial it is to have somebody that is closer to the level of competence the actual audience the book would be reading, because Alex is so unconsciously competent, that he's so fluent that he can't even understand what's so hard about concurrency, So these are more intermediate resources. Like I said, my publisher was going to kill me if I didn't do a whole big slide here. And that is going into print as of like yesterday. So other intermediate resources. We have Clojure Applied. That is also a pragmatics programmer book. That is authored by Alex and Stu. Grokking Simplicity was released a few years ago. That is Eric Normand, who has been hugely influential helping me in my learning journey. He has purelyfunctional.tv is his website. He does weekly newsletters. Grokking Simplicity really emphasizes functional programming principles and why they matter. It goes into like deep dive into, but it's still approachable at the same time. It's hard to do that, and he did it very well. Debugging with a Scientific Method, and I forgot to put Stu's name. Stu, please don't kill me. That's another really, really great talk about how to use the REPL. And lastly, the Cognicast podcast, which is now, I think, called The Hammock by Newbank. And what's cool little fun fact trivia is in 2021, I was interviewed. I was doing enough memes and I was making enough waves. They were like, who is this girl? And so they interviewed me. And the person that interviewed me is Robert Randolph, who is now my manager. And that was like just a very slow roll. I think they just kept an eye waiting for my competence or wisdom or something to get better. And I'm really grateful for the team that I work on now and my manager, because I've never experienced having a good manager before, but I get to now, and it's just so amazing. Okay, here are more tools. So let's see, I want to make sure I get all the authors' names right. So Portal is a data visualization inspector that it goes into your REPL and helps you with workflow. I actually have a podcast episode where I talk to the author and creator of that, Chris Badabru. AdLib helps you dynamically add libraries to your REPL like during development. And I apologize if some of these aren't making sense if you're super novice. But hopefully this is the kind of talk that you can actually go back and revisit and build on. Also to the Clojure script ecosystem, we got Shadow CLJS. It's kind of the build tool that we needed because it simplifies working with Clojure script and NPM. And as I explained earlier, actually, the majority of my professional experience has been with Clojure script. And watching how that, specifically how Shadow helped that ecosystem and make it more accessible to people, that was really cool to be there for that. So we have a whole data science sect because Clojure is so good for data science. The only problem is that all the data science libraries are in Python. Bummer. Not really. We have libpython CLJ, which helps bridge that. So you can use all your favorite Python libraries for your data science, but then actually think about the reasoning in Clojure. That's cool. So the Clojure group, as it's called, they are in the Clojurian Slack, but they actually hang out mostly on Zulip because they appreciate that they mirror the Slack to the Zulip, and then it keeps the history forever because data science people, makes sense, they want the data. And there are really, really cool things. It's almost like a ecosystem inside an ecosystem, the Clojure data science story. They mentioned when I did that poll asking, they mentioned tablecloth, saying it simplifies data manipulation and visualization for analysts and scientists. I'm not a data scientist. I wish I could elaborate on this more. But if you are, you should go into the Slack and start being curious. Flowstorm Debugger. I have tried that. That's cool. It's a debugging tool that you can use with your REPL for this interactive, fast tracking program. Flow. You have to experience it. I feel like I can't really communicate how awesome the REPL workflow is. It's like normally you have to send over your entire program and it has to, but with the REPL, it's literally line by line. Like you have such a tight feedback loop with the data that you're working on that you can ask it direct questions. And it's awesome because it helps you grow through the exploration. And I have a hypothesis that is why I've been able to accelerate as quickly as I have in programming, is because of the aid of this feedback loop of helping me. Because there are 3 things to become an expert, and it's not 10,000 hours. It all boils down to deliberate practice, which is giving feedback to others, asking for feedback for yourself, and then giving feedback to yourself. And the REPL helps you achieve that. So, expert. At this stage, you've mastered the fundamentals and you're pushing boundaries with what's possible with Clojure. And this is where the curiosity leads into innovation, the innovation story. Here are the tools that represent the cutting edge. I don't know, cutting at 2012, that's not cutting edge. But as I mentioned, I work on the Datomic team. This is not a vendor pitch because it's free software. Wait, not free software like that. It's free to use, not open source. Don't bring it up in the meeting. But it's really awesome. It's used by companies like Netflix. As we talked about earlier, Nubank went so all in on Datomic, they literally just acquired the consultancy that made it in the language. They feel pretty strongly about it. Because as it turns out, it's kind of crazy that we mutate state in databases. Like when you actually think about it, if you're asking a question to something and then you're changing it, we don't do that. We don't do that. So it's really good for applications like fintech and health. Like when you really, really, really don't want to lose your data, you can't lose your data. That's what Datomic is for. You know, XTDB, they are another Clojure-based database that has the time-aware features that I was just talking about. I think they call it bit-temporal capabilities. That just means that you can say, hey, at any point in time, what was the state of this like? And that's because we don't change the data. There's also Electric, also known as, I think the company is Hyperfiddle, but Electric and Missionary, and there's actually a lot of tools done by Electric. They're reactive programming frameworks that I haven't had the opportunity to use yet, but so many people mentioned them, I had to stick them in. And I am a fan of Dustin Getz, the person behind Hyperfiddle. So we went through beginning, intermediate, and expert. And now we have the very tip top of the chain. Google Sheets. The one true tool for thinking. So I will leave you with oh, I put the wrong slide. Well, originally, Rich Hickey said, when he embarked on Clojure, he was not, nor did he aspire to be a designer. And from now on, he was responsible for Clojure. And the success of Clojure changed his life and career in ways that he never thought possible. I have edited it because I gave this talk about Clojure Camp a couple weeks ago. And yeah, Clojure Camp gave me the opportunity to be a learning experience designer. And that's one thing I do have in common with Rich, is that Clojure has changed my life in ways that I am so grateful for and I never thought possible. And that's why I'm so passionate about sharing it with everybody. Okay, I think we are time. Oh yes, look, perfect time. Yay. And you know what? Let me put up my little link tree thing so you can see if now what I said was interesting to you. You can scan the little doodad, and that tells you all the places and things that I do because I'm involved in a ton of projects. Okay, that's it. Thank you.